He fought for his country, but when he tried to see his little sister graduate, 2 guards told him he didn't belong. The sound of cheers echoed through the gymnasium at Riverside High School in San Bernardino, California. Families waved signs, phones were in the air, and the smell of popcorn and fresh-cut flowers filled the hall. It was graduation day, the kind of day that lives in family photo albums forever. And right outside those glass double doors stood Marcus Tillman, a newly minted Marine, dressed sharp in his dark blue uniform. His shoes shined like mirrors, metals catching every bit of sunlight. He wasn't there for attention. He was there for one reason: to surprise his little sister, Alana, as she walked across that stage. He had rehearsed the moment in his head 100 times, her spotting him from the stage, gasping, running down to hug him while the crowd clapped. After months away at boot camp, that hug was all he wanted. Marcus took a deep breath, smoothed his jacket, and pushed the door open. But before he could take 2 steps inside, a voice cut through the air. "Hold up! You can't go in there." Marcus turned. 2 security guards stood by the entrance, both wearing black polos with "Event Security" stitched on the chest. One was tall and heavy-set, maybe in his 40s. The other was younger, with a trimmed beard and the kind of smirk that said he liked authority a little too much. Marcus tried to smile. "Oh, I'm just here for my sister's graduation, sir." "Family section, right?" The older guard folded his arms. "You family? You got a ticket?" Marcus reached into his coat pocket and handed him the printed pass. "Right here. My mom left it for me at the front desk." The guard glanced at it, then at Marcus, then back at the ticket. Something shifted in his tone. "Yeah, well, this section's already full. We're at capacity." Marcus blinked. "Capacity? But people are still walking in." The younger guard stepped closer. "Sir, we said it's full. You'll have to wait outside." Marcus kept his voice calm. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just got back from boot camp last week. My sister doesn't even know I'm coming. It would mean a lot." 5 hours earlier, Marcus Tillman stood in front of a mirror in his mother's living room in Moreno Valley, California, adjusting his collar for the 3rd time. The sunlight cut through the curtains, highlighting the crisp lines of his uniform. He hadn't worn it since boot camp graduation, and even now, the weight of it felt heavier, not from fabric, but from pride. On the couch, his mother, Denise Tillman, watched him with watery eyes, her hands clasped together like she was afraid to blink and miss the sight of her son in that uniform. "You look just like your daddy used to when he'd get dressed for church," she said softly. Marcus smiled. "You think he'd be proud, Ma?" Denise nodded. "He'd be proud the moment he saw you walk across that base. But you know what he'd say, right?" Marcus grinned. "Keep your shoes clean, keep your head high." "Exactly," she said, reaching for a tissue. "Now, you sure about this surprise? Alana's heart might stop when she sees you." "That's the plan," Marcus said, chuckling. "She's been begging me to come home for months. I figured if I'm going to make it, I'll do it the right way. In person, in uniform, and on her big day." He grabbed a small box from the table, a gold bracelet with the words, "For my brother, my hero," engraved inside. It was what Alana had mailed to him at camp. He wore it around his wrist, hidden under his sleeve. Today, he planned to return it to her as a promise that he'd always be around. His friend, Caleb Morrison, who'd come by to give him a ride, whistled from the doorway. "Man, they're going to think you're part of the ceremony dressed like that. You sure you don't want to bring a camera crew too?" Marcus laughed. "Nah, just my face and a hug. That's all I need." Caleb's smile faded slightly. "You be careful, bro. People see that uniform, and sometimes they see something else first. You know what I mean?" Marcus looked at him, expression tightening. "Yeah, I know. But today ain't about that. Today's about family." He gave his mother one last hug before heading to the car. The ride was quiet at first, the hum of the old Toyota filling the space between them. Then Marcus spoke. "You ever think about how weird it is?" he said. "You can go through months of training, learn discipline, leadership, respect, and still out here, people look at you like you're trouble before you even speak?" Caleb sighed. "Every day, man. But that's why what you're doing today matters. Show up, show pride, show grace. Let them see who you really are." Marcus nodded. He glanced out the window at the familiar streets, the park where he used to play basketball, the diner where he'd worked part-time before enlisting, the church with the broken bell. Everything looked the same, but he felt different now. When they pulled into the parking lot of Riverside High, Marcus checked his reflection one last time. The gold buttons gleamed. His hat sat perfectly aligned. The crowd outside the school buzzed with excitement. Families hugging, kids posing for pictures, teachers giving last-minute directions. He thanked Caleb for the ride, stepped out, and stood still for a moment, soaking it all in. This was it, his sister's big day. He imagined her face when she'd see him standing there. The surprise, the tears, the laughter. That moment was worth every mile, every sleepless night, every obstacle. He started walking toward the entrance, his ticket in hand, pride in every step. But as he got closer, he noticed the two security guards posted by the doors, scanning the crowd like hawks. Something about their expressions made his chest tighten, but he brushed it off. He adjusted his sleeves and kept walking, but excitement can turn into something else in a matter of seconds. The air inside the lobby was cool, but Marcus could feel the heat crawling up the back of his neck. The two guards blocked the doorway like they owned it, standing shoulder to shoulder, scanning his uniform as if trying to find something wrong with it. The taller guard, Randy Heller, according to the tag on his shirt, tilted his chin slightly. "Where you say you were headed again?" Marcus kept his composure. "Inside. My sister's graduating today. Alana Tillman." He pointed through the glass. "I've got my ticket right here." The younger guard, Trevor McLean, leaned against the wall, twirling a lanyard around his finger. "We've got a lot of people claiming they're family. You'd be surprised how many folks try to sneak in." Marcus blinked, still calm. "I'm not sneaking in, sir. My mom left my ticket with the staff at the front desk. I already picked it up." Trevor smirked. "Yeah, I heard that part. But this event's got dress code policies. You're kinda formal for a school gym, don't you think?" Marcus stared at him, trying to understand what he meant. "This is a Marine uniform," he said slowly. Randy crossed his arms. "And we appreciate your service, son, we do. But this ain't no military ceremony. You're making some people uncomfortable walking in dressed like that." Marcus felt the words hit. Uncomfortable. That was the word people used when they didn't want to say what they really meant. He took a breath. "Look, I'm not here to cause a problem. I just came to support my family." Trevor stepped forward. "And I'm telling you, it's family only." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You see this ticket in my hand? It says Tillman Family Section. That's me. That's my sister's name on the program." Trevor looked at Randy, then back at Marcus. "You sure it's not a fake?" "We had a couple of those earlier." Something inside Marcus stirred. He'd been trained to keep his cool under pressure, to think, not react. But this was different. This was personal. He lowered his voice. "You calling me a liar?" Randy quickly jumped in. "Hey, don't get defensive, Marine. We're just following orders." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Whose orders? To keep Marines out of their families' graduations?" A few people standing nearby started to whisper. A mother holding a toddler shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting between Marcus and the guards. From inside the gym, the sound of names being called echoed faintly. Each one was another reminder that his sister's moment was slipping away. Randy gestured toward the door. "Sir, we're not going to argue. You can wait outside or in the parking lot." Marcus stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "So, let me get this straight. I served my country, came home for my sister's graduation, showed my valid ticket, and you're still telling me I can't walk through that door?" Trevor's smirk faded for the first time. "You heard what we said." For a second, nobody moved. You could hear the faint shuffle of programs, the distant applause, and the fluorescent lights humming above them. Marcus slowly tucked his ticket back into his pocket. His chest rose and fell with deep, controlled breaths. He wasn't going to yell. He wasn't going to give them what they wanted. He'd been taught something better than that: discipline. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll wait." He stepped aside, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the gym doors. The guards seemed satisfied, muttering something to each other before returning to their posts. A few people nearby shook their heads, whispering things Marcus could barely make out. That's messed up. He didn't do anything. Why'd they stop him? Then, through the small window on the gym doors, Marcus saw the stage. Students were lining up for their diplomas, teachers giving handshakes, cameras flashing. His sister was probably waiting right now, scanning the crowd, hoping to see him. He swallowed hard. He'd made it all the way home for this. All the way through boot camp, all the way through pain and pride and long nights. And here he was, outside, but not everyone had turned away. Across the lobby, 6 men stood quietly, watching. Their posture gave them away before their faces did. Straight backs, squared shoulders, controlled movements. They didn't need name tags or introductions. They were military. One of them whispered to another, "That's him, right? Tillman?" The man nodded slowly. They started walking toward the doors, but someone in that crowd was already moving toward him. The moment Marcus saw them coming, he knew. The way they walked, calm, confident, deliberate, it was impossible to mistake. 6 men, dressed in navy blazers and polished shoes, cutting through the crowd like they were moving with purpose. Leading them was Chief Brandon Kessler, a tall, broad-shouldered man with graying hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much and learned to stay quiet about it. Behind him were Petty Officer Luis Ortega, Corpsman Ryan Shaw, Lieutenant Chris Avery, Petty Officer Nolan Brooks, Sergeant Adam Vance, and Petty Officer Damian Cole. These weren't just random men in suits. These were Navy SEALs. Marcus blinked in disbelief. He hadn't seen them since a joint training exercise at Camp Pendleton nearly a year ago. A tough week of drills, exhaustion, and respect earned the hard way. He'd been the youngest Marine in that program, and they'd given him the nickname Ironback for how he never folded under pressure. Now, fate had lined them up in the same building, on the same day, watching this mess unfold. Chief Kessler was the first to speak. "Tillman?" His deep voice cut through the murmur of the hallway. Marcus straightened instinctively. "Chief?" Kessler's face softened with recognition. "Well, I'll be damned. You clean up better than I remember." He extended a hand, and Marcus shook it firmly. The other SEALs nodded and greeted him one by one, brief, respectful, but warm. Ortega clapped him on the shoulder. "Man, last time I saw you, you were crawling through mud. What are you doing out here?" Marcus hesitated, glancing at the guards still standing near the door. "Trying to get in." "My sister's graduation," Ryan Shaw frowned. "And they won't let you?" Marcus didn't want to make it bigger than it already was. "Said the section's full." The SEALs exchanged looks. They didn't need words. Everyone there could see what was really happening. Chief Kessler turned his head toward the guards. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried authority. "Gentlemen, is there a reason a U.S. Marine can't attend his sister's graduation?" Randy, the older guard, blinked, suddenly less sure of himself. "Sir, we're just following orders." The auditorium's full Kessler's eyes narrowed. "Full?" He stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back. "Because I just saw at least 6 people walk in while this man's been standing here. So maybe you want to explain what's really full. The seats or your judgment?" The younger guard, Trevor, straightened up, defensive. "Look, this isn't your business, all right? We're handling it." Luis Ortega chuckled under his breath. "You're handling it wrong, man." Trevor frowned. "Excuse me?" Chief Kessler didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Son, when a Marine shows up in full dress uniform to honor his family, you don't handle him. You show him respect." People in the lobby had started to pay attention now. Quiet at first, but word was spreading. Cameras came out. Someone whispered, "Are those Navy SEALs?" The tension thickened. Marcus held up a hand, trying to defuse it. "Chief, it's all right." "I don't want trouble." Kessler looked at him, then shook his head. "Trouble? No, son. You've earned peace. We're just making sure you get it." The 6 SEALs moved subtly, not threatening, but unified, like a wall of quiet strength. Trevor looked between them, suddenly unsure. "Look, we don't want any issues. We're just—" "Good," Kessler interrupted. "Then open the door." Trevor hesitated, glancing at Randy, who shrugged helplessly. Ryan Shaw stepped forward, his voice firm. "You know, I've served with this man. I've seen what he's capable of. He's respectful, disciplined, and honorable. The fact that you'd question his right to be here says more about you than it does about him." The younger guard's face flushed. "I didn't mean—" Kessler cut in again. "Then do the right thing." Now the silence stretched. People were watching, phones up, recording. The guards looked cornered, not by aggression, but by truth. Finally, Randy unlocked the rope barrier, muttering something about policy changes and fire codes. The door opened with a click. Marcus stepped forward, still calm. He didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He just nodded to the guards and said, "Thank you." Kessler gave him a look. That proud, approving look you only get from someone who's seen you at your lowest and your best. "We got your six, Marine." Marcus smiled faintly. "Always, Chief." The crowd parted as he walked through, the weight on his chest lifting with each step. Behind him, the SEALS stood silently, watching him go, making sure the path stayed clear. They didn't plan to cause a scene, but they weren't going to let this one slide. The doors shut behind Marcus with a hollow thud that echoed through the hall. Inside, the graduation ceremony carried on. Names read aloud, parents cheering, tassels swinging. But the energy in the lobby had shifted. Everyone could feel it. The two guards still stood by the entrance, pretending to go about their job, but the way they avoided eye contact told the truth. They'd been checked, and not by just anyone. The SEALs were still standing nearby, arms folded, watching them with the quiet stillness of men trained to react only when necessary. Marcus paused just inside the doors, the air thick with whispers. He didn't want this moment. Not like this. All he wanted was to sit down, watch his sister, and clap when her name was called. But before he could move farther into the gym, a man in a gray suit appeared from the side hallway, his expression stiff. His name tag read, Mr. Landers, Event Coordinator. He motioned to the guards, then to Marcus. "Sir, can I speak with you for a second?" Marcus turned. "Is there a problem?" Landers smiled the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "We've just had a report of some, confusion at the entrance. I'd like to clarify what's going on." Chief Kessler stepped forward before Marcus could respond. "The only confusion," he said firmly, "is why one of our Marines was denied entry to his own sister's graduation." Landers froze, glancing at the 6 men behind Marcus. His voice softened instantly. "You're all military?" "Correct," Kessler replied, "and this Marine here has every right to be inside." Landers shifted his weight, realizing the crowd's attention was now fully on him. He tried to maintain composure. "I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding," Luis Ortega cut in. "A misunderstanding's when you spill coffee on someone. This was disrespect," Ryan Shaw added. "You don't stop a man in uniform because you think he doesn't belong. You ask questions. You confirm. You treat him with basic respect." Landers cleared his throat, looking toward the guards as if to share the blame. "I assure you, this school doesn't tolerate discrimination in any form." Chief Kessler raised an eyebrow. "Then prove it." Right now, Marcus stepped in, his voice calm but unshakable. "Look, I didn't come here to make a scene. My sister's inside. She's probably about to walk. Just let me sit with my family." Something in his tone, measured, dignified, made the entire room fall silent. Landers nodded quickly. "Of course. Please, right this way." He turned toward the gym doors, but before opening them, he glanced at the guards and said quietly, "You two wait here. We'll talk after this." The SEALs exchanged subtle smirks, saying nothing, but the message was clear, lesson delivered. As Landers guided Marcus inside, Chief Kessler and his men followed. The crowd parted like a tide, phones still recording, whispers buzzing through the air. "Those guys are Navy SEALs. Man, that Marine handled himself better than I could have. Look at him, not even angry, just focused." Inside the gym, the sound of applause swelled as another graduate walked across the stage. Landers led Marcus toward a reserved section near the front, whispering apologies the entire way. Marcus stopped him with a quiet hand gesture. "It's fine. Just, let's move on." He spotted his mother sitting a few rows ahead. The moment her eyes found him, she froze. Her hand flew to her mouth, and tears immediately welled up. "Marcus?" she mouthed. He smiled and nodded, finally taking a seat beside her. Denise squeezed his hand, trembling. "Baby, you made it. I told you I would." But before they could say anything more, the gym erupted with applause again. Alana's class was lining up near the stage. Back near the doors, the SEALS stood against the wall, watching quietly. Kessler caught Marcus's eye and gave a small nod. No words, just respect. And then it happened. From across the gym, the school principal, Dr. Elaine Porter, approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue," she began, her voice steady, "I've just been informed that one of our graduates has a very special guest in the audience." The murmurs started instantly. Cameras came out again. Dr. Porter smiled toward Marcus's section. "Please join me in recognizing one of our nation's servicemen, recently returned from Marine boot camp, here today to surprise his sister, Alana Tillman." The gym burst into cheers. Students stomped their feet, parents clapped, and Alana, standing on stage in her cap and gown, froze. She searched the crowd until her eyes locked on her brother. Her jaw dropped. She let out a laugh that cracked into tears. Marcus stood, hand over heart, smiling through emotion he didn't even try to hide. Alana ran off the stage, ignoring the shocked teachers trying to stop her, and sprinted across the floor. She collided into him with a hug so tight it knocked his hat slightly askew. The crowd erupted again, louder this time. Chief Kessler leaned toward one of his men. "That right there," he said, "is what respect looks like." But what happened next stunned everyone in the auditorium. The applause seemed endless. It wasn't the polite kind people give at graduations. It was thunderous, raw, emotional. Parents stood up. Students turned to record. Teachers near the stage dabbed their eyes. It wasn't just a reunion between a brother and sister. It was a moment that reminded everyone in that gym what pride and sacrifice looked like. Marcus held his sister, Alana, close. She was shaking, crying into his shoulder. "You really came," she whispered, voice trembling. "I told you I wouldn't miss this," he said softly. "Had to make it back in time for my favorite graduate." She laughed through her tears, pulling back just enough to look at him. "Mom said you might come, but I didn't believe her. You're really here." He smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I'm really here, kiddo." The principal, Dr. Porter, stepped down from the stage and approached them. "Mr. Tillman," she said kindly, "we're honored to have you here." "Thank you for your service." The microphone was still on, her voice echoing through the speakers. Marcus gave a humble nod and said into it, "Thank you, ma'am. I'm just proud of my sister, that's all." The crowd erupted again, some shouting "Semper Fi" and "Oorah!" as if they were part of his unit. But amid all that celebration, Marcus caught sight of something near the back. Those two guards, Randy and Trevor. They stood half hidden near the exit, faces stiff, eyes down. Behind them was Mr. Landers, the coordinator, looking pale as paper as he whispered into a phone. Chief Kessler and his SEAL team were still posted near the side wall, arms folded, watching everything quietly. They hadn't left. They were making sure things stayed right. The principal gestured toward the microphone again. "Would you like to say a few words?" Marcus froze. He hadn't planned for that. He wasn't there to speak, but the moment demanded it. He walked slowly toward the stage. Alana squeezed his hand before he let go. He stood behind the podium, the spotlight hitting his uniform, making the metal shine even brighter. The gym went silent. You could hear the echo of a single balloon bouncing against the ceiling. "I didn't come here expecting this," Marcus began, voice low but steady. "I just wanted to surprise my sister and let her know how proud I am. But before I got in here, I was stopped outside." A ripple went through the crowd. Cameras rose again. Dr. Porter's eyes widened slightly, realizing where he was going. Marcus continued. "Two men thought I didn't belong. Said the place was full. Said I should wait outside, and I could have gotten angry. But I didn't, because anger isn't always the answer." He paused, scanning the crowd. The guards shifted uneasily near the back. "I learned something in the Marines," Marcus said. "Respect isn't about the uniform you wear, or the color of your skin, or the title you hold. It's about how you treat people when no one's watching." The audience was silent. You could almost feel the weight of those words settle on every shoulder in the room. Marcus nodded slightly. "I didn't come here for recognition. I came to remind my sister, and maybe everyone here, that dignity isn't something anyone can take from you. You decide who you are." He looked directly at the two guards. He didn't glare, didn't point, just held their gaze long enough for the message to land. Then he turned back to the crowd. "Today isn't about me. It's about my sister. It's about her future, her strength, and her heart. And if I've learned anything, it's that you protect those you love. Always." Applause broke out again, slower this time, heavier with meaning. People weren't just clapping for the speech. They were clapping because they felt it. Dr. Porter wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Tillman." Truly, she turned to the audience. "That's the kind of lesson we hope all our students take with them when they walk across this stage." When Marcus returned to his seat, the SEALs gave him a respectful nod. Chief Kessler whispered, "Handled like a true Marine." "Didn't feel like it," Marcus muttered. "Just felt like doing what's right." Kessler smiled. "That's exactly what makes it right." Back near the exit, Landers put away his phone and approached the guards. His voice was low, but the tension was unmistakable. "You two, my office." Now Trevor's shoulders sagged. Randy didn't argue. They followed him out, disappearing into the hallway. Alana leaned on her brother's shoulder, whispering, "I can't believe all this happened." "It feels like a movie," Marcus chuckled softly. "Nah, it's just real life. Sometimes it shows people who they really are, but the biggest moment of all was still waiting inside." The ceremony continued, but the atmosphere inside that gym had changed. What started as a typical high school graduation now felt like something deeper, like the whole room had been reminded what respect really means. The laughter, the clapping, the calls of, "We love you, Alana," all had more weight now. Marcus stayed seated next to his mother, trying to calm the storm still spinning inside him. He had just laid everything bare in front of hundreds of people. Not to shame anyone, but to make a point. He didn't want pity. He wanted perspective. When Alana's name was called, the crowd erupted again. She walked across the stage, wiping her cheeks, trying to smile through the tears that just wouldn't stop. The principal hugged her, whispered something in her ear, and then handed her the diploma. As she turned to face the audience, Dr. Porter took the mic again. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've already met Alana's brother, Marine Marcus Tillman. But I'd like to do something we don't usually do." She looked toward Marcus's row. "Mr. Tillman, would you join your sister on stage?" The audience broke into applause once again. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "Me?" His mother nudged him. "Go on, baby." He stood, straightened his uniform, and walked slowly toward the stage. Every step cacoed in the gym, each one heavier than the last. Cameras followed him, flashes bursting from every corner. As he climbed the steps, Alana ran to him again, laughing and crying all at once. The principal handed her the microphone. "Go on, say something to your brother," Dr. Porter encouraged. Alana turned to Marcus, still shaking with emotion. "You came home," she said, voice breaking. "You really came home." Marcus smiled and brushed her tears again. "I told you I would." "You think I'd miss this? You're the first Tillman to graduate high school since Dad. You did that?" The audience clapped again, but Alana wasn't done. She turned toward the crowd, holding the microphone tightly. "I just want to say something, if that's okay." Dr. Porter nodded and stepped aside. Alana took a deep breath. "When my brother left for the Marines, he told me, 'Don't let anyone tell you who you are. You show them.' And that's what he did today. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. He showed respect, even when he wasn't given any." The room was completely silent now. Every parent, every student, every teacher was listening. "My brother is the reason I don't give up," Alana said. "He's the reason I know I can do anything. And if you ever wonder what strength looks like, it's not just muscles or medals. It's standing tall when someone tries to make you small." Marcus's throat tightened. He hadn't expected her to say that. He felt his mother's eyes on him, filled with pride and quiet tears. Alana turned back to him and handed him something small, a gold bracelet, the same one he'd given her years ago. The engraving still read, "For my brother, my hero." "I think this belongs to you now," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, it belongs to us both." The principal returned to the microphone. "Let's hear it for the Tillman family, for service, for perseverance, and for what true family looks like." The entire gym rose to its feet. The sound was deafening. Even the SEALs, still standing near the back wall, clapped. Slow, steady, proud. Chief Kessler leaned over to his men and said quietly, "We see things every day that test who we are. But what we saw today, that's what we fight for." Marcus looked out over the audience. For the first time in months, he didn't feel like a soldier or an outsider or a target. He just felt like a brother. As he walked back down from the stage, holding Alana's hand, he caught a glimpse of the guards again through the gym doors. They were standing outside now, heads lowered, talking quietly to Landers. They looked different, not angry, not proud, just humbled. And for Marcus, that was enough. He sat down next to his mother again as the last names were called. She leaned in and whispered, "You changed something today, you know that?" Marcus smiled softly. "Maybe. But I didn't do it alone." He looked toward the SEALs, still at attention. They met his gaze, each one giving a small nod. That unspoken promise, "We've got your six," still stood strong. But even as the cheers filled the room, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. When the ceremony ended and the last students tossed their caps into the air, the gym erupted into laughter, tears, and flashes of phone cameras. Families crowded the aisles, teachers hugged students, and proud parents clutched bouquets of flowers. It was a beautiful kind of chaos, the kind that happens only when years of struggle finally meet one moment of triumph. Marcus stood near the back, away from the crowd, letting his sister have her spotlight. Alana was surrounded by her friends, her teachers, and his mother, all of them taking turns hugging her and congratulating her. Marcus just watched, smiling quietly. He didn't need attention. Seeing her happy was enough. Chief Kessler and his team approached him, shaking his hand one by one. Their handshakes were strong, deliberate, filled with silent respect. "You handled that perfectly," Kessler said. "Didn't lose your cool. Didn't let emotion take over. You kept your dignity." Marcus shrugged lightly. "Didn't feel like much at the time. I just didn't want to embarrass my sister." Kessler smiled. "That's exactly why you earned all this respect today. Because real strength isn't loud, Tillman. It's quiet. It's how you carry yourself when no one's clapping." The SEALs said their goodbyes, and Marcus thanked them for stepping in. When they walked away, he stepped outside into the evening light. The sun was setting over the parking lot, turning the sky orange and gold. He finally let out the breath he'd been holding all day. For a while, he just stood there, watching people leave, hearing the laughter fade, feeling the cool air hit his face. And in that moment, his mind replayed everything. The guards, the humiliation, the silence, the SEALs stepping up, his sister's tears. It all came together into one truth that settled deep in his chest. You can't control how people treat you, but you can always control how you respond. He walked toward his old car, parked under a flickering light post, and just before he got in, he noticed movement by the gym doors. The two guards were standing there again, Randy and Trevor. This time, no arrogance, no smirks. They looked unsure, almost embarrassed. Randy cleared his throat. "Marine Tillman," he called out. Marcus turned, standing tall but calm. "Yes, sir?" Randy stepped forward, holding out his hand. "We, wanted to apologize. We were wrong." No excuses, Trevor followed. "We didn't know who you were. And honestly, that shouldn't have mattered. We acted out of line." Marcus studied them for a long second. He could see they meant it. Their voices carried no edge, no defensiveness, just honesty. He shook their hands firmly. "Apology accepted. Just remember something. Every person you stop or question is somebody's family. You treat them like that." Both men nodded quietly. "Yes, sir." As they walked away, Marcus sat on the hood of his car, looking out at the school that had been the stage for so much more than a graduation. His mother and sister soon joined him. Alana climbed up beside him, still holding her diploma. "You know," she said, "when they called your name, I thought I was dreaming." Marcus chuckled. "Nah, this was real life, little sis." Messy, loud, and beautiful Denise smiled softly. "Your father would be so proud of you both." For a while, they just sat there together, watching the last families leave. The streetlights flickered on, and the night settled in peacefully. Marcus thought about everything that had happened, about the looks, the whispers, the confrontation, the forgiveness. It had been a long day, but it wasn't wasted. It had meant something. He finally turned to Alana and said, "You know what the best part of today was?" "What?" she asked. "That I didn't have to raise my voice to be heard." Alana smiled. "You sure did, though. Everyone in there heard you, loud and clear." Marcus laughed quietly. "Guess so." He stood, straightened his jacket one last time, and looked out toward the horizon. "Respect," he said, almost to himself. "It doesn't cost a thing, but it means everything. He took a final look back at the gym, at the banners, the balloons, the open doors, then turned to his sister. Come on, let's get you home. Graduate. As they walked to the car, the fading echoes of applause seemed to follow them, blending with the soft California breeze. The moral was simple, but it stuck with everyone who witnessed it that day. When you carry yourself with grace, you don't just demand respect. You teach it. If you've ever seen someone treated unfairly, don't look away. Speak up. Step in. Sometimes, the smallest act of courage can change the way people see the world, just like it did for Marcus Tillman.